All right, I have 2:01 on my clock, so I'm just going to go ahead and launch right in and get started. Next slide, please. So welcome everyone. Thank you for taking some time out of your afternoon or evening or morning, depending where you are. Delighted to spend the next hour with you talking about some programs and services that you can rely on here at CRL to help you address local needs. I'm Greg Yao. I'm the president of CRL, and I'm just delighted to spend some time with you. You know, at heart, CRL is a community, and 2020 has been just an incredibly challenging year for all of us. And as we close out this calendar year, I think it's a wonderful time for us to celebrate community, celebrate the CRL community, and talk about the membership benefits and some of the programs and services that you can count on and you can rely on at this moment more than ever to help you address, to help you be effective in your local work. Next slide, please. So the way that we're going to spend this hour together, the team and I have been talking about putting together this program, and we structured it in this way. Amy Wood, CRL's head of metadata and discovery enhancement, is going to spend the first part of the conversation talking about research support, about collections and access to collections, and how members of the CRL community can get access to resources to help them work with faculty, students, and researchers right now, particularly in a digital environment, in a digital delivery environment. So that's going to be the first half, and Amy's going to talk about that. Now, the second part is going to be about collections and cooperatively building collective collections. And James Simon, CRL's Director of Collections and Partnerships, is going to talk about the different tools and programs for how we build and steward the collective collection together so that we can contain local costs while still collectively building a rich and diverse and equitable resource environment for research. And then we'll have some time for some Q&A and some wrap up before we close. Next slide, please. Now, we have a lot of new members here in CRL, so I'm going to do a lightning round, just a lightning 1 minute quick overview of what CRL is, no more than 2 slides. So CRL is going into its 8th decade. It was created in 1949, largely created by the Big Ten, and it was created to be a collective collection stewardship enterprise. And it was really part of this post-war explosion in research, particularly in area studies and international studies. And research libraries realized that to build the resources that researchers needed access to, we simply had to work at the network level. We had to work as a collective community, a cooperative community, to be able to meet our local missions. Now, the value proposition was such that CRL grew really, really rapidly. And in its first decade, it had already outgrown that Midwestern regional focus. And by the early 60s, it actually had become international in scope, with the University of Toronto and Canadian research libraries coming on board. And so in 1964, changed the name to Center for Research Libraries, which is the name we've had since. Next slide, please. So what is CRL? Well, CRL's a place. In the background there, you can see our 130,000 square foot research facility in Chicago. We're in the south side of Chicago. We're on the campus of the University of Chicago. But just south of Hyde Park, we're in a neighborhood called Woodlawn, and we're really, really proud of our Woodlawn community. So we're a place. We're a collective collection. Research libraries have been building and stewarding these cooperative collections for 8 decades. And we're a collective collection. That means 6 million analog items that we steward in cooperation, and 85 million pages of digital content. And the digital content grows by about 5 billion pages every year. But I see CRL as more than anything a community. It is a part of the academy-owned, academy-governed, research library-owned, research library-governed part of the academic infrastructure to support the knowledge commons. We're not a vendor. We're EDU. we are just a membership cooperative. And we have members across the U.S. and across Canada, research libraries of all different sizes and scales and local diversity, but all dedicated to the mission of research. It's a wonderful, wonderful community, and we're delighted to have you a part of it. Next slide, please. So with that, how can you leverage this community? How do you leverage this community to address workflow pressures and needs right here, right now? And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amy, who will talk about research support, discovery, access, and use.
Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be able to talk with you today and highlight ways that you can access research support, discovery, and access the collection at CRL in the best way. And I want you to know, as members, you also have access to a really dedicated team at CRL who will help you with all of this, with the research support, with the discovery, with the access, so that you can make the best use of the collection and serve your members, your patrons, the best way that you can. Next slide, please. So what can CRL do for your library patrons? This is always top of mind for that really dedicated team that I mentioned already. What can CRL do for your library's patrons? Next slide, please. Research support. CRL can help meet the research support and teaching needs of your patrons. CRL's collection is an indispensable research level collection with material and archives from all world regions in 278 languages, with strengths in news, law, and government information, in science, technology, and engineering, in history and agriculture. And beyond those, there are also deep collections of non-US dissertations, of material in education, non-US gazettes, just really very, very deep collections. So CRL's team is really here to help you access that material as best you can. We want you to think of us as your support network for your entire scholarly community, your entire library and scholarly community, to help you use these collections as best you can. Next slide, please. So the best way to find CRL's, to discover and access CRL's collection is really through its catalog records. There are 1.5 million records in CRL's catalog, and every one of those is added to OCLC's WorldCat database, to the web-scale discovery services such as Primo and Summon, and to consortial borrowing programs like InReach and Borrow Direct. We want to ensure that the records get into the system that is most meaningful to your patrons. So if there is something that's not listed on here that you use, that you know is important to your members, we definitely want to hear about that. And we will work with you to ensure that you get our records. Next slide, please. So just a quick look at CRL's catalog. We won't do a deep dive here because I know you all are familiar with library catalogs, but I just wanted to point out that we have optimized the catalog so that you can access some of those deep collections that I talked about in an easier way. The newspapers, the dissertations, those both have features and particular functionality that's targeted to the way we know the patrons want to search those collections to find the material. We also, if you notice in the top right corner, we do have a dual language interface, and this really highlights the global nature of CRL's membership and the important Canadian members that we have. Next slide, please. So taking discovery a step further, we want to facilitate your understanding of CRL's collection and your understanding of your own collection and how that works with CRL's collection, and access to CRL's collection at a level to which you can't get with normal library catalogs or tools and other desktop things that you might be familiar with. So CRL provides a variety of data analytics and collection comparison services, and these can range anywhere from just taking a deep dive into the catalog to see, in response to a researcher's needs, they would like to see all of the newspaper records from a certain time that were published in a particular country, or they might be looking for a particular topic. These are, we don't want our patrons to sit there and just do one search after another in the catalog. We really want to optimize that research by using the tools that we have to find those records and help you access that material. We also will do collection comparison with our members' records and CRL's records so that you can see what is unique in CRL's collection, where there is overlap in your collection, or where you can just expand the resources for your patrons. We have also done interinstitutional collection comparison and assessments to help members that are part of shared print programs when they're working with a group of libraries and want an interinstitutional or cross-institutional collection comparison and assessment. We have worked with those. We've worked with up to 25 at a time. So we're really very pleased to be able to bring these services to all of our members. And for discoverability services and record loading, this is another area where we really try to customize the service. You can certainly get all of our records to load them into the catalog. You can get those established sets, such as the newspapers or serials, or we are happy to work with you to create custom sets so that when you know what is a strength in your collection and you want to add to that, we can target just those records that you need. Next slide, please. So how can you access and receive CRL's resources? Well, there are multiple pathways. And again, this is an area where if there's something not listed here, of course, we will work with you in any way that we can for you to request and receive material. CRL delivers articles from serials and newspapers via Odyssey and Rapid. And if you do not currently use Rapid, CRL can arrange for you to use the CRL pod. Articles delivered through Rapid come not only from CRL's collection, but also CRL's partner, Linda Hall Library in Kansas City, Missouri. The Linda Hall Library has over 48,000 journals related to science, technology, engineering, and their histories. It's a fantastic collection, and they do a great job with the scanning and delivering of that material. Next slide. Digital delivery. We go way beyond article delivery with our scanning. In the past 15 years, CRL has scanned almost 3 million pages on demand in response to member requests. So Greg had mentioned that we have about 85 million pages. 3 million of those are just in response to member requests for material from the collection. We scan full volumes, runs of serials and newspapers, and sometimes those can be quite long. And we work closely with our members to ensure that we can develop a schedule that works both for them and fits within, the resources that we have to do the scanning. And we don't just scan and deliver. The preservation of the material and the future access of the digital resources are also top of mind. Files are processed and described with full metadata to ensure the full life cycle management and future use. And we see this across the board with our digital resources. They are used time and again, and have become an enormously valuable resource in this time of remote work and learning. Just since July, we have scanned and enriched with metadata and preserved over 143,000 pages of material from the collection, from CRL's collection. And just last month, the digital team scanned 59,000 pages, which is 350% above the same time last year. So CRL's Scan on Demand service is one your patrons and your colleagues really need to know about. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, James Simon.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks, everyone, and good afternoon, morning, as the case may be. I'm really happy to be here as part of this team to share some of the information with the new members and the longstanding members alike. Building the collective collection is part of CRL's enterprise with the member institutions. Greg and Amy have already talked about the amazing collection that we have and we hold in our facility in Chicago. Over 6 million volumes, over 85 million pages of digital content. We grow that by 5 million pages a year of digital content. We spend over $1 million on acquisition of new resources every year. So we're constantly building this collection in response to the patrons, your patrons' needs and your own priorities. So part of the enterprise of being a CRL community member is helping to shape the shared collection. And to do that at a scale that spans the world and yet somehow addresses your particular local needs. This is what wakes me up every morning excited to come into work at CRL. And I just want to share with you some of those amazing things that CRL does on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Since we're always growing the collection and we're always working closely with our members, the question foremost on our mind, and is probably on your mind too, is how can libraries work together to contain costs? We all know scholars have an insatiable appetite for materials, and yet our funds are extraordinarily limited, especially these days. How can we contain costs while simultaneously building diverse and equitable collections for the benefit of scholarship? That's what CRL does. I'm going to highlight just a series of programs where this is our primary consideration when we come through this. But in order to make the most of your membership in CRL, I'm going to highlight some specific areas that you can keep in mind in order to maximize the value of your participation in CRL. If we go into the next slide, please, I just wanted to highlight one of the most exciting services that CRL provides that can give you an instant return on investment for your participation in CRL, and that's our demand purchase services. I think that every liaison librarian, every reference librarian, every ILL person on your team, in fact, every scholar, every researcher, every non-tenure track faculty or conducting research today should know this program and should be making active use of it. It is hands down one of the most exciting programs that we offer because this puts us in direct interaction with you, and it grows the collection every year with unique resource materials that then go on to serve the broader membership as a whole. It's a great way to meet your scholars' individual needs, as well as maximizing your participation in CRL. So we purchase materials in 3 principal areas for CRL libraries, for your patrons on request. Foreign doctoral dissertations, dissertations outside of the US and Canada, and in particular PhD level dissertations for this. Newspapers, runs of newspapers for which CRL has holdings but may have gaps in our collections. If we have the 1980s of a title and you're looking for the 1930s, we'll acquire that. Also, collections of archives, archival materials, government documents, NARA sets, the UK National Archives. If your patron is looking to acquire materials for their research, you should be thinking about CRL. What can CRL acquire to serve my patrons' needs? This is a huge benefit for your scholars. And you'll see here on the slide, we have a limit of $2,000 per fiscal year per patron, not per member library, per patron. So if a member has faculty who are working on a project and they need to acquire something, we'll acquire up to $2,000. If you have 2 faculty members, $4,000, 3 faculty members, up and up and up, as it goes. Theoretically unlimited until our budget runs out. So we attempt to acquire just about anything we can. And frequently, when requests exceed that limit, on a case-by-case basis, we'll exceed that dollar amount. That's just a guideline. Be assured of that. So this should be foremost in your staff's mind. What can CRL acquire for me? And in fact, we'll do that work for you. If you put in your ILL request with the statement, please purchase if not owned, we'll do the work to see if we have it, and if not, we'll try to acquire it. We'll ask you if you have an immediate need for this, and we'll spend time to go get it. Now, of course, if you need instant access to an article, you may move on to the next person in the lending stream, but you should be thinking about CRL in these areas in particular. Just a note about e-resources in this area. Most dissertations now, of course, are being produced in electronic format, but not all of them are accessible through institutional repositories. We receive a large number of requests for UK theses and dissertations. And I just wanted to highlight here that we've partnered with the British Library's e-theses online service, Ethos, to arrange for digitization of materials that have not yet been put up in that repository. If there's an initial cost for scanning those dissertations, CRL will pay for that digitization, and we'll send you the link once it's digitized. So if you're acquiring resources locally, when you're not using CRL, you should really think about CRL and using this service. I love this program. I cannot highlight it enough, but I know I do have to move on. So next slide. Another way that we can contain costs, but also serve your local priorities, is through our major acquisitions programs. The Purchase Proposal Program is one of CRL's long-standing programs to acquire significant and costly resources for the benefit of the entire membership. It's a critical component of the community effort to build shared collections and to preserve, in fact, the scholarly record. This program can be used to extend your own local collecting priorities. It can provide access to costly materials that you simply cannot afford to buy for your faculty. It can fill gaps in the scholarly record for materials. It's a program with immense potential, and it's one that members again and again come back to and say, this is one of the best programs that we have in order to fulfill our specialized faculty needs. So in the fall, we ballot collections that have been nominated or suggested by the membership to the entire membership, who then can evaluate and prioritize those resources according to your local needs. Once that prioritization is complete, CRL goes out and attempts to acquire as much material as they can for as much of the budget that we have allotted for this. Typically, it's more than $150,000 a year that we acquire materials. And if materials are more costly, we can continue those purchases over a series of years. So you shouldn't think of this program in any limited way. This is a way to collect small and large materials alike. For example, a 20-year run newspaper, for example, the L'Osservatore Romano, which is the Vatican newspaper, or the French satirical journal, Charlie Hebdo, have both been nominated and acquired through this program. Next slide, please. Oh, wait, back. I did forget to mention the little teaser at the bottom of the slide. Because you have expressed intense interest in making sure that this program is responsive to your faculty needs, we will be rolling out a pilot program to accept proposals for digital purchase proposals. The work is being done right now to frame that program, but we anticipate that this will entail acquisition of data sets or digital materials or active digitization of collections themselves. So look for more information coming in January as to the process for our digital proposal program, and we look forward to working with you on that. Next slide, please. Beyond the acquisition of collections that can serve your needs, CRL also offers network opportunities to help influence the scholarly marketplace. This is the power and promise of CRL from its founding through today, is how can we work together collectively to influence, for the benefit of scholars, the material access and preservation of these materials. And I just want to highlight a few ways in which we do that with your feedback, with your direct input, and you shaping our programs. Next slide, please. A close kin to the purchase proposal program is our shared purchase services. This is a way for libraries to crowdsource community support to extend collections. This is a way that we can support cooperative acquisition of resources that may not be high enough a priority through the purchase proposal, or may simply be a specialized resource that a smaller community is interested in acquiring. So in this case, a member can suggest some materials, and CRL has seed funding that it can commit towards acquiring those sets. We then put it out to the community in order to have institutions who may be interested in supporting that acquisition pledge funds towards it. And once our funding levels are reached, CRL can acquire those materials for the benefit of the entire membership. So this is just a way that we can be a force multiplier for institutions who are looking for specialized research materials. A good example of a shared purchase that recently we acquired was a long run of the title called National Mortgage News that covered the span of the savings and loan crisis. This is the kind of material that you may not want to acquire on your own, but some institutions have extraordinarily strong interest in this. So they pooled their funds and they acquired it through CRL. This is just a conduit for members to work together to make investments for the good of the whole. Next slide, please. Speaking of collective investment, CRL has engaged in strategic digitization in cooperation with our membership for a number of years. We act as a community convener in areas where the members have identified particular needs and particular priorities. A great example here is our work with the community as well as with the commercial marketplace in the digitization of news resources. I highlight here just two programs. The original program called the World Newspaper Archive, in partnership with CRL member institutions and REDEX, was a way to collectivize the interests of CRL members to make international historic newspapers available, widely accessible. More recently, CRL has embarked on a large-scale digital initiative with Eastview Information Services through their global press archive. The collective investment of CRL institutions has permitted us to launch a major digitization program of over 4.5 million pages of news content, both contemporary and historical, for the widespread access by the entire CRL membership. It was through your interest in shaping this program that CRL was able to undertake such a large enterprise, and we look forward to continuing this program as we go. Some really important points here, though. This is entirely controlled by the CRL community. This has been, the titles have been prioritized and selected by the community, by you yourselves, and we are just working to make sure that this happens on behalf of the entire community. This sizably advances your mission to make unique content available for your researchers. And with an even more important point here, with such a large component of this project being open access to news resources, we're also advancing your mission to support the broader research community through this work. These are just two examples of how CRL can help design community-controlled programs to enhance access. Next slide, please. In the area of electronic resources, and beyond our own local digital efforts, CRL is also engaged in a substantial amount of EResource licensing on behalf of the member institutions. Why does CRL license when so many other consortia are out there? Simply because the members saw a need and they asked CRL to be involved. Where many consortia are focused on the big deals and large commercial journal packages, there was a gap in terms of how institutions can obtain cost savings and better terms of access to primary source materials, news resources, and other types of materials that we would consider less traditional in the licensing marketplace. So CRL and its members devised a program that could help inform your local investment in these electronic resources. What's important about CRL's program, though, is that we're not a buying club. We're not in this solely as a price savings mechanism. The entire enterprise of CRL's licensing was really to help support the transparency and the openness in this process, to obtain the best possible terms of access, and to make sure that there's a sustained pathway for those resources on the other end of this. In this way, CRL has been working closely with its community to promote provider transparency and to influence information sharing across the broad membership of CRL. And I'd like to just highlight the platform by which we're doing that on the next slide. If you're not familiar with CRL's platform, eDesiderata, this is something that you should point your staff to. This is a platform for community action. bar none. We use this, of course, to host CRL's licensing offers, but it holds so much more promise. This was built to support that community investment and informed investment in priority areas. The eDeciderata platform was a homegrown product that was built to have members share their interests in licensing electronic resources, to share information about those electronic resources, be it the terms of the offers, some of the pricing considerations, where these programs fall up or down in terms of usability or accessibility. In short, this is a platform to harness the collective intelligence of our member institutions in the area of electronic resources. And this platform can help you use that network intelligence to make smarter decisions on behalf of your local staff. Along the way, I mentioned that this is also where CRL posts its own offers for licensing activities. And when you log into the system, you're able to see those electronic offers, the pricing, the terms, the licenses, and you can use this to suggest whether or not you're interested in obtaining those products or suggesting other resources for CRL to consider. I cannot recommend this platform enough, and I encourage you to make active use of it in considering your own licensing activities. Next slide, please. Another way that CRL uses the network to serve on behalf of the member institutions is by aligning with like-minded institutions, those who share a similar mission towards obtaining, making accessible, and preserving for the long term important research resources for the scholarly community. We have two major partnerships I just want to highlight today in brief to suggest how CRL can do this to develop access to collections at scale. When you join CRL as part of our community, you're actually joining a collective of collective collections, such as the program with the Linda Hall Library of Science, Engineering, and Technology. CRL is partnered with the Linda Hall Library in order to extend the historical science materials that the CRL members have brought to CRL itself by providing access, as Amy said, to nearly 50,000 journal titles of a premier science library. This is an unparalleled collection of materials particularly in engineering, physics, chemistry, and you can receive article requests at no charge through the benefit of the partnership of CRL and the Linda Hall Library. Also in this, we have developed shared collection profiles, and these are areas that you can look at to see whether or not your own local investments should be influenced by what CRL and Linda Hall represents through its own shared collections. So again, there's a feedback loop here. You can rely on these partnerships in order to inform your own local collecting purposes, and we encourage you to do so. If you're interested in exploring how, please be in touch with us, and we'd be happy to put you in touch with our colleagues at the Linda Hall Library. Another important partnership is that with the LLMC Digital, formerly the Law Library Microform Consortium. This is a collective of academic institutions dedicated to preserving the most important legal and government information on behalf of its constituency. LLMC has a sizable and impressive membership that complements CRL's own, and its collections complement CRL's own materials as well. Through our partnership with LLMC, the CRL community has prioritized more than 21 million pages to date of digital collections to add to the LLMC digital database. You also are able to plug into the more than 80 million pages that LLMC has digitized on its own, on behalf of its own membership. So there's an added value to this partnership of being able to both influence the collections that are being made accessible and accessing the materials that are already available through that collection. We work constantly to obtain feedback from the member institutions as to priorities for the materials that we should be making available through the partnership. For instance, CRL and LLMC worked to digitize the provincial Canadian journals to complement US legislative journals that CRL holds in its collections. These are sizable, long runs of materials containing the historical record of judicial and legislative decisions in our two countries. I highly recommend that you point users to this database, which has recently obtained a new interface, is far more user-friendly than the previous iteration. I urge you to take another look and to promote this collection alongside of CRLs as well. Next slide, please. Above all, CRL at the network level is there as a platform for collective action on behalf of its institutions. We have been facilitating the community in driving important programs since its founding, since the early 50s and mid 60s. We've developed support networks for international and area studies, for example. The Cooperative Africana Materials Project for Africa, the Middle East Materials Project for the Middle East, and so on. CRL acts as a support for the community that's interested in prioritizing, identifying, and making accessible important regional community materials that they couldn't do on their own. So we can act as that force multiplier, as that community convener. In addition to those programs, we are working more and more with the community on specialized research materials like technical reports, agricultural historical periodicals, and South Asia historical and contemporary journals and archive materials through our South Asia Open Archives. So when the community comes to us with these needs, CRL can work with the community. We can work with you to help shape programs that can address your local needs. And we love to do it, so always come to us with your ideas. In the areas of shared print, as Amy mentioned, CRL has been acting as part of the growing community of institutions invested in sustaining and maintaining the future of print. CRL is part of this ecosystem, and we're very proud to be engaged in bringing that community together to look at ways that we can build shared infrastructure and shared information to help inform decisions related to shared print. Recently, Amy and her team have been working very closely with the California Digital Library and Heidi Trust in projecting for the community our intent to cooperate more broadly in building that shared infrastructure to help inform your local decisions and network scale decisions around shared print. And finally, when we start looking outward at the collections that are being produced outside of the scholarly marketplace, when we're looking at civil society, when we're looking at government information, when we're looking at the news producers, CRL is increasingly interested in coming with new models and new ways to support those research materials for the member institutions. So guided by your interest and through the forums that CRL has convened to explore these challenges, CRL has started to develop programs where we can invest collections money or support for institutions that are producing these types of materials and need to build capacity and access mechanisms. So for instance, CRL has recently been working with 3 universities in Mexico, supported by a wonderful grant from the MacArthur Foundation, to build infrastructure to help support and sustain documentation and evidence around the disappearances of people in Mexico as a result of the drug wars since 2006. This is being done in collaboration with that community, but as well as with the CRL member libraries that are interested in this making sure that these materials are available for the long-term purposes of memory, of justice, and historical truth. So these are just ways that CRL can act as that facilitated leader for collective action. And we're very pleased to be working with the community on all of this. So in short and in closing, we're here to respond to your needs, to amplify your voice, and to help you fulfill your missions to advance scholarship. I'm going to turn this back over to Greg for the next section of our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Next slide, please. So we have some time for some, the Q&A or some discussion. Really want to field some questions that folks might have after hearing these remarks. But before we go into Q&A, I just want to do some framing remarks. Today's webinar was meant to be an orientation to the wide swath of different services and programs and ways that the CRL can help you do your work. And we are happy to do a deeper dive on any one of these programs, whether it's one of the collection programs that James talked about, or maybe it's talking about the data analytics work that Amy and her team does. We can do a deeper dive on any of these topics, and we can do it in your local context. We're happy to put a team together and do a webinar for your liaisons, for your staff, and really tailor a presentation for your individual context, individual priorities. That's one thing I want to say right out of the gate. And the other thing I want to say is I'm going to repeat something that Amy said, because it's something that as I've settled in at CRL over the last year, I've only slowly begun to realize how important this is. And it's Amy's team, Amy and her metadata team's data analytics work. And that means that when you're doing discovery work in your own local layers, when you're working with CRL's catalog, of course we hit limits in what we're finding or not finding. We have questions about what we have and don't have. You can reach out and work directly with Amy's team, and they'll do all sorts of analysis for you, analyzing your own collections, doing comparison studies. Of course, capacity is always an issue. I'm sure Amy's a little bit nervous hearing me say this right now, but it is something that we do, and we do quite regularly, and I just want that to be widely understood, so that the broad, CRL community knows that that's something we can do for you if that's of interest. With that, I'm going to be following the chat. If you have questions at all, go ahead and post them. One question that did come in is this, and I'm gonna answer and direct it to James to further flesh out. But it's about our scan-on-demand service, and the question was, do we scan and deliver digitally material that's still under copyright? And the answer to that is yes, within the confines of fair use. But I'm going to hand it over to James to add a little bit more, make that answer a little bit more robust.
Thank you, Greg. And yes, the answer is exactly that. Yes, within the confines of fair use. We are able to consider any request that you may make. Number one, if we have the capacity to do it, if we can turn it around in a reasonable time frame, or if you're willing to wait, we can scan on demand as much material as you need. However, we do need to take into consideration some of the copyright aspects and the potential of fair use in the activities that we do. So, for example, if it's an actively publishing newspaper and you're asking for a run so that you don't have to purchase a vended product for this, we might have to take a look at that to make sure that we're not violating the fair use rights or the copyright concerns of the active producer themselves. So in some cases, we're just not able to meet every request that we have. So within those limits, certainly any materials that we can scan that are outside of copyright protections, we make that material openly accessible. We can scan it, make it accessible to the world. If there may be copyright concerns, but we think those risks are fairly low, and we have a really strong case for fair use, we can make it accessible to the entire CRL membership as sort of a members-only access to those materials. So it often has to be on a case-by-case basis, but we do honor requests for materials that may be under copyright.
Thank you, James. Got a really good question about the MacArthur grant around human rights documentation in Mexico. And the question is, how does CRL go about making decisions on where to invest resources? Because when you pick up a project, of course, that's a resource allocation decision with trade-offs. And so what kind of process do we go through such that the decisions we make are aligned with the community? And I think that is a great question. So I'm going to take a crack at answering this, James, because that particular project predates my time. But I want to take a crack at answering it, and then I'm going to hand it over to you again to flesh it out a bit. The human rights project that we're embarked on right now is funded by the MacArthur Foundation, and it is aligned with a long-standing collection area in human rights, in human rights documentation that CRL's had for decades now. So it falls within that collecting area. Having said that, since coming on board at CRL, a little bit over a year and a half ago, one of my priorities is actually just this thing. What we could be doing and where we could, what projects we're taking on, that there's almost no end to it. So what process do we have to govern those decisions to make sure that it's going through a process to reflect our community? And for me, that means activating our committee structure. And so we have a CSPC committee. It's a board level committee. It is our Collection Services and Policy Committee. And I will say now that any big project that we're considering picking up or going forward on has to go to that committee early to get discussion through that committee and get that committee's buy-in before it moves forward. And so really activating the committee structure and empowering the committee structure to drive our programming, that is essential. Because like I said, we're not a vendor. We're not even really, we are the membership. We are you. And so we have to use our committee and governance structure to make sure that we're accountable. Because, right, so that's a really, really great question. But James, if you have something to add, please add that, because that does predate me. So.
No, thank you. I mean, you covered it wonderfully. As I said, CRL responds to areas of priority from the membership. And in this particular case, our human rights documentation was an area of growing interest since the early 2000s. And we've been working with the community of libraries that are really focused on this to help try to provide solutions. Now, was this decision for this human rights documentation repository came up actually out of a series of conversations with our advisory groups on the global collections and with the community of Latin American librarians who are focused on what types of documentation are important for research today. So it was kind of an organically grown program. And then further, it was informed by the community of scholars and librarians, as well as journalists and civil society people in Mexico itself. So it was an extremely exciting program that sort of grew out of the grassroots. But Greg is totally right that, making sure that we have structures and feedback mechanisms to help inform our members as to, what kinds of partnerships we're taking on, really important. And I'm so glad that Greg brought that up.
Yeah, that's actually, one of the, really connecting with our community, really activating that committee structure. That's really one of our top priorities right now, really bringing together our community, making sure that this cooperative is truly community governed and community led. So we have that, for instance, we have that CSPC committee, that Collection Services and Policy Committee. But just this fall, we launched a subcommittee to that group, which will be our International Collections and Content Group. And that's spinning up a group of really phenomenal international collections curators and experts across the CRL community to really be leading strategically and programmatically our global collections efforts. And so, creating committees, and I know that when you say creating committees, some people might be like, oh no, not another committee. But when you're looking at a community-led enterprise such as CRL, our committees are incredibly valuable because that's how we can work as a community. That's how we can govern ourselves as a network. And so creating committees, volunteering for committees, putting, and participating in committees is a way to really get involved, and really want to put a lot of effort into that now and going forward. Here's a question, and actually, it's a question that I myself am looking forward to the answer. Is it true that faculty can borrow content from CRL and keep it until someone else requests to use it? I don't know the answer to that.
We do have unlimited loan periods. I mean, well, there's an initial 6-month loan period, but there are unlimited renewals. But I would suggest, though, if you suspect that a faculty member would like to keep that material for a long time, that's something you ask us to digitize. There are no limits on how many times they can use that digital copy, and it will offer a lot of other ways of diving into the material, I think. So definitely, they can keep it as long as they want until someone else requests it, but why not digitize?
And James, this is a question that's going to go right to you. It's has the intended WNA Latin America Series 3 with the British Library been revised elsewhere? That's right to you.
Super good question, and thank you for that. Yeah, I framed both of our news partnerships on the same slide because one, they're both still active, and we engage in both of them. However, I think the community has expressed this real strong interest in pursuing the openness and the widespread availability of content and collections. For those who aren't as familiar with the World Newspaper Archive, this is a program with Redex that has made collections of historic materials widely available. And we did collect funds from member institutions to support digitization of collections from the British Library. That's somewhat got stuck in a quagmire of rights from the British Library, and so the particular relationship with the BL was put on hold. However, we have been reserving those funds for future collection activities of Latin American materials, and we intend in the next year to pick up the scope of those materials in the new context of the Global Press Archive, because right there we have an active interest in working with publishers to make those content collections available. So we are picking it up in a new frame. Yes, thank you.
So next slide, please. Awesome. So we have a few moments. So if you have any last questions, I'm still monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post them, and we'll pick them up. But I want to call everyone's attention to this screen, because we did a quick overview of some programs and services, and we wanted to make sure you have our contact information so that you can contact us if you have follow-up questions or would like us to talk about any particular point in greater depth. And so you have, direct contact information for myself, for Amy, for James. And then at the bottom, we have contact information for Andrea Dunce, our relatively new and absolutely stellar Director of Communications and Membership Engagement. And Andrea and her team can put together a presentation and visit with any local member library to talk about our suite of services and programs and how your local library can take advantage of them. We're happy to do that all the time, because CRL is you. You are CRL, and we're here to serve you because we are of the research library community. We are the research library cooperative, and we want to make sure we're there for you. So thank you so much. One question is, was the webinar recorded? Andrea, this is right for you.
Yes, we did record the webinar, and we will be posting it on our social media. There will likely be a link to it on our website as well, and also on our YouTube channel. So it will be something that we can share. Also, we plan on distributing a PDF of all the slides we presented today to the attendees. So you'll also have a copy of those slides for your reference.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I think we can close 5 minutes early. I like that, especially on a Friday afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. Stay healthy, stay well, stay optimistic. 2021 is going to be fantastic. I'm very confident of it. Hang in there. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.